Just to let you all know that this is being recorded, just to make you aware. I'll get it moving. So yeah, today is part of the Design and Construction Technology series that we run on the first Friday of every month. So thank you all for joining us, and welcome to some of you that haven't attended before. So today, 5th of May, so first Friday of the month. Next one is obviously first Friday in June as well. So typically what we focus on for each session, if you haven't attended one previously, sorry, I'll turn my camera on, not to be rude. So typically what we focus on is we look at, a particular technical workflow, usually with inside Autodesk Construction Cloud, and we kind of just focus on that and show you how that function and feature works and potentially how you could apply it to your projects. So these workflows, they're relevant to, across architecture, engineering, and construction related projects. So if you're a designer or if you're a main contractor or a subcontractor, there are workflows relevant to you inside this as well. It may be just different in how your potential discipline may use barcoding, for example, whether you're a main contractor on site or maybe you're a designer. There's I suppose there's a way for you to collaborate as part of that as well. So, and that's how I try to format these, is that I make it to apply to both designers and both construction stage contractors, subcontractors as well. So I try to make it as relevant as possible, because I suppose with Autodesk Construction Cloud, it is a single environment for both design stage and for both construction stage, or the single source of truth as it's often described. So that's the format I try to structure these, is to show you how potentially you can collaborate with, design stage and construction stage inside the environment. So what we're going to focus on today, to move on, what we're going to focus on today is specifically around barcoding for site stage. And I know that's, main contractors, subcontractors are certainly very relevant for you. There are also ways that that's relevant to designers. So for example, if an architect or an engineer, structural, civil, mechanical, going to site, they could potentially use the barcoding for assigning checklists or using their checklist for inspection, whether that's BCAR, quality, health and safety as well, around scanning a location barcode, for example, on your iPad or on your mobile device. If you're doing design inspection or any sort of inspection, you could scan that barcode on site and you could pull up a checklist or related information to it as well. So that's what I mean by this being relevant to design professionals or design organizations, as well as the main contractors and subcontractors as well. But obviously huge benefit for people that are working on site day to day as well, using these type of workflows. So, and that's what I'm going to cover today. So what we're looking at, as you can see, I'm logged into Autodesk Construction Cloud. You can see that in the top left-hand corner. And that's where these workflows typically are executed. There's some external integration that I'll show, things like bringing models from Revit. I will show you how to do that and maybe extract some of the parametric information as a barcode, like your IFC or your GUID. You could turn that into a barcode. So I'm going to show you some of those workflows as well. So just to kind of start it off, there's effectively two different areas for barcodes inside the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. So the first one that you can integrate barcodes is actually in locations, and that's found under settings inside Autodesk Build. And if you come into locations, so within here, using a location naming strategy or whatever you're using, what type of project. I mean, if you're working on a pharmaceutical plant or a hotel or a housing development, you're going to have a different naming strategy, maybe zone numbers, building numbers, or it could be house numbers, unit numbers, hotel rooms, apartment numbers, depending. That's what your effective location strategy is going to be. So what I have here on the left-hand side, in this first one, I've got unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they could be number of houses, but it could also have room numbers, plant room 01 or, 056 or whatever it is. So I've created this naming structure myself using the locations, and I have covered locations in previous webinars. So I'm not going to go into in too much detail, but I just want to show you how the barcode can sit along that, alongside those location naming strategies. So the purpose of the location, effectively, as I'm sure you can imagine, is that if someone scans a location on site, if they go into a room or a zone and they scan that barcode, it will bring up an information relevant to that location. Now, I appreciate that not every site is ready for sticking barcodes. you know, you know, you may only have rising walls or foundations in, where are you going to put a barcode? So that's probably not going to be possible, but I can still show you at that later stage in a project where maybe you do have somewhere to assign barcodes or other ways to use barcodes at that initial stage. I will show you how to use those workflows as well. So this is assuming that, you know, there's somewhere to put a barcode in a room, because I appreciate, you know, dusty surfaces, making sure barcodes don't go missing off, you know, a column or a piece of steel that it's been applied to as well. And I'll also show you how to generate those barcodes. So back to the locations and just specific on barcodes. So I've got a series of locations here. I customize these locations myself. I can add in further locations if I want to. I can add in other locations and add into that particular list if I want to as part of that, and rename that however I want inside there. But again, what I can do with that, if you look on the right-hand side for my barcodes at the top, I've actually generated QR codes in this regard. So Unit 1 has a QR code, and Unit 2 has a QR code, and down to Unit 5. So if I scan that on site effectively, it's going to bring up, you know, particular information that's relevant to this. And I will show you, I do have my iPad charged and ready to go. So I'll be able to show you how that actually works, because typically, typically we're going to be using iPads on site. We're not going to be walking around with laptops scanning barcodes, or we're going to be using, you know, a mobile device as well, or a telephone, or sorry, a mobile phone, I should say, with that as well. So with these QR codes are actually generated in a third-party tool. I found one, for example, QR code generator. Just an online website. I put in a code and it generates my QR code for me here as well. So that's done outside the platform. But what I'm able to do is I'm able to say, okay, well, I want this to be, you know, I can give it whatever number I want. So I just typed in a particular number for that particular unit code. I could do the same for room 406 in here. I could add in a particular location, and maybe I could call that RM 406, and then what I do with that particular naming is I come in here to my QR code, paste in my code, that generates a QR code, and then that's what gets printed out and put in that particular location. Then I download that, for example, I take a second, and I end up with something that looks like this. So this is effectively what gets printed out. Now, I appreciate organizations may have methods or printers on site specifically for barcodes, or different ways of attaching barcodes. So I'll kind of leave that up to maybe what you're already doing, or to you know, investigate what you think is the best process in terms of getting the physical barcode onto the object as well. I'll certainly make some suggestions, and then that's then downloaded as you know, different type of barcode. So this is a different QR code, and this is the one I just generated for room 406. It's now associated with that location. I'll show you in a moment now the relevance of associating with that location as well, or the purpose of doing that. So that's associating with locations. These locations, for example, a location can be relevant to a form that has been filled out on site as well. So I could have all of my forms for Unit 001. What I mean by forms is checklists, QA, QC, safety, commissioning checklists, BCAR checklists, any type of inspection checklist can be associated with a location. And then what I can do with a location is I can pull a report on the location. So I can say, okay, well, I want all of the checklists for Unit 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It will pull all the checklists, but they will have been connected by the barcode on site initially as well. And again, I will show you that in a moment as well. So that's the first place for barcodes. And I'm going to go into the workflow for that now. And then I will go into the second area in the platform for barcodes as well, which works slightly different, and it's a different type of barcoding kind of approach as well. So first of all, we'll look at the locations. So what I'm going to do is I'm in a particular project here. If you've been on these webinars before, I typically use this project. It's my own demo Autodesk Construction Cloud project, and I'll just briefly show you where this is sitting. Location is in the settings area of this specific project. So if I come into my files area, you know, I've got all of my project files in here. So I'm inside the same project effectively is what I'm trying to say. I can look at my different design information that's stored in here as well. So I just wanted to give you context of where I'm using locations as well. And I can look inside of any of this information, really. I can open up Revit models and CAD files or PDF files and all of that stuff inside here as well. So I'll show you where the locations is relevant now. So just to give you that type of context. And again, if I come into build, this information is accessible to me on a mobile device. I can pull up a set of drawings or that BIM model, or look at clashes or coordination that needs to be done on the project as well. And again, where I'm finding locations is inside settings. So just to give you more context for locations, so if I come into forms, for example, inside build, again, still within the same platform, within inside that project. If I come into forms, and if I actually click on a form, and I can actually see this location column here. So there's a checklist for first fix carpentry. I think I spelled that wrong, apologies. Unit 001. So that location is the same location that what I was looking at in the settings a moment ago. There's all the forms for unit 001. So they can be connected by, somebody comes in with a checklist, they scan that location, and they can associate that checklist with that particular room or zone number as well. So just to show you where location comes into the actual projects, if I click on this executed, this has been an applied location, or sorry, checklist already for the installation of a door or a window, or could have been air handling unit, piping or ducting, anything like that, or columns or foundations. I can see here that a location is applied to this particular form. This form is form number 87. So it's an individual form, and it was executed in unit 001. So again, I'm just trying to show you context of where locations works into the system itself. If I go into issues then as well, so issues are like tasks or responsibilities, my locations also sits in there. So if I look at an issue that's happened on site, here's a critical issue, it's assigned to Joe Plumber. If there's a location assigned to this, it will appear in here. If there's not, I can choose it from this drop down. So again, these are the same locations that we looked at in settings as well. So again, I'm just giving you more context of where locations fit into the platform. Locations also comes into other parts of the platform as well, but primarily you're looking at forms for your checklists and issues as part of your locations as well. There are other areas that it comes into as well, and we'll look at that in a moment as well. So just to show you where locations comes into it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come back in here. Again, I'm a project administrator on this project. So I can see I have project admin rights. So that's what allows me into these settings. If I wasn't a project admin, I just wouldn't have access to this area. You would have to ask whoever your project administrator is. There's always one project administrator on the project. It doesn't allow you to create a project without a project administrator. Somebody is an account administrator, they can give you access to this. So if you're looking in your own Autodesk build right now and you can't see it, possibly you need to ask for access as project admin to the locations area, is what's happening there. So just on the location, so locations themselves can be uploaded as an Excel document. So it's not that I have to create individual line items in here, because I mean, locations could go into the thousands. You could have huge projects, obviously, with lots of different rooms, hospital project, hotel project, different rooms, different zones could run into the hundreds or thousands, and you don't want to be managing all of that or creating them individually. The quick way then to get your locations in the first place is through Excel or through an Excel format. The platform gives you a template here, so download template. I can open up this template, and this is the blank template that I can import into my location system. And what it allows you to do is pre-populate the barcode. So you can see this particular example that we're looking at. It's for Tower 1, and it's converted the naming structure into a barcode. So you can create your own naming structure as well. You could automate that in Excel, taking in these various codes as well and putting it in here. So depending how you want to set it up, all I need to do then is I just upload this document, and all of these locations will be generated. You can see I've already done that in the background effectively. I didn't upload the barcodes, but that was just because I wanted to do it on screen myself. So you can do all of that in Excel document, so saving you a lot of work effectively. This could also be exported from a Revit file, for example, or another piece of design software that will give you outputted CSV or tabular form information as well. You could also generate it from your design tool. If it's in Revit, for example, if it's a room schedule that you pull, or an area schedule or zoning schedule, you could import that in here and just populate your columns effectively before you upload it. So that's just want to give you context for locations and why we would use barcodes with location. So that's the kind of settings and the location. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm actually going to get a barcode. I do have one up here somewhere. So this one, I generated this QR code. So we'll assume that this QR code, you know, is sitting in a room number when I walk into a room, somewhere nice and safe on a laminated piece of paper stuck to a wall, let's say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my iPad. So just give me 2 moments. There we go. I just have a screen sharing app here that I can use. There we go. So I'm going to pull up my iPad just to show you what it looks like. There we go. And I'm going to go into the Autodesk app. So I'm going to open up the Autodesk app. I'll big screen that so it's just a bit clearer. And I'll just go back to my home screen. So on my iPad, I've come into this project, which is the same project I'm in my web browser. But if I come down to the More button on the right-hand side, and then if I actually come into Locations, if you go into More, it's at the bottom there. You can see where it says Location. So if I click into Locations, these are the pre-populated locations that are pulled from that settings area already. So you're assuming that this is done at the start of a project, and you know, best case scenario, or I would certainly advise that it's set up at the start of a project, but it just means then that your project's going to run smoother. Then you have forms to associate with locations, and vice versa if it's done at the start of a project. Before a project goes to site, you'd probably want to set this up as a kind of best practice. So what I do on the iPad then is I come to the scan button down here. When I press scan, you know, I press scan on the iPad. So I'm going to press scan on the iPad now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up by QR code. So again, we'll assume this QR code is stuck to a wall or a door or something as part of that room. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan that barcode. So what it does then is it actually finds that location on the iPad, and it brings me to that. In this case, it's found unit 1. Now, I know it was top of the list already, but it brings me to, if I had hundreds or thousands, it would bring me to whatever I scanned. So what it's showing me for this location is it's showing me that there's 33 issues associated with this location. There's 3 assets, and there's 16 forms. So that's all of those connections that I showed you. I showed you issues and I showed you forms. I didn't show you assets because that's what I'm going to show you before we finish up, because that's another barcoding integration as well that I can also do. So it shows me all of that related information. I can then click into those 16 forms and go, okay, well, what are the forms in there? Are they all completed? Oh, here's a one for form work that's in progress. Why is that in progress? So I'm able to do that by location as well, just by going into my iPad. I could also pull a report as well, but this is just showing me in real time on the iPad. So what I'm seeing now is all 16 checklists in there as well. Some of them are closed, some of them are not. And then I can click into those checklists. I can go into the first fix electrical and I can say, well, why is that not executed, or why is that not finished? And these are the same forms that I see in my web browser as well, but I'm just seeing it on the iPad. So that's scanning that location tag brings up all of the information associated with a particular location. I don't have to scan a barcode either, by the way, just if for whatever reason the barcode went missing and fell off the wall, or, you know, got swept up. I could also search in here for, maybe I know I'm in, you know, unit 005. I could type in, if I had a really long list, I could type in unit 005 and it would bring it up on the iPad as well, just if I wasn't able to scan it. And it's going to show me again. Now I've come into unit 05. I can see that I have 2 issues, 1 asset and 1 form. So an issue, if you're not familiar with an issue, I know I showed it on screen, but that, again, that's a task or responsibility that you can assign to people on site or even in design offices as well. An issue could have been assigned back to the architect, or it could have been assigned back to the subcontractor or the plumber or the electrician, or, you know, the foreman, or, you know, anyone that you need to assign it to. I can click on that issue and I can see what those issues are as well. So here we have a non-conformance assigned to the construction manager, could have been a health and safety issue, or I see I have a minor issue as well. So whoever creates the issue effectively can choose what location it's associated with. So lots of different people can associate different issues with a single location. So you're able to capture that information. The location is effectively an aggregator. You know, it brings all information together for a particular object or a particular location, depending how you use your location. A location can also be an object, by the way, and we'll get into that in a moment when we look at assets as well. But that's effectively locations and barcoding. That's what it's going to do for you. It's going to pull up this information for you, and it's going to show you different types of information. As I click into it, I can see what checklists have been completed as well. And then I can also generate reports based on those locations as well inside the desktop browser, or inside the browser version of Autodesk Construction Cloud. So that's barcoding and that's locations. So that's one way of doing barcodes on a mobile device, iPad. It works on a mobile phone as well, by the way, or a smartphone, whatever way you want to call it. So that's one way of doing it, okay? So barcodes and locations, option number one. Option number two is barcodes and assets. And I know I've covered this previously in different types of webinars because it is a workflow I'm quite a fan of. So inside Autodesk Construction Cloud, I'm going to move away from locations now. So kind of just push that out of your mind for a moment, pretend it doesn't exist, because this barcoding exists, the assets barcoding exists separate to the locations barcoding. So if I come into build, for example, and if I go down to assets on the left-hand side, so inside assets on the left-hand side, these assets, these assets can be, what I have here is, radiator, hydronic, fin tube. It could be an air handling unit. It could be doors. So here we have lots of different doors, and if any of your Revit users, you'll recognize the naming in there. It could be roofing panels, for example. It could be external cladding panels as an asset. So these assets are actually objects or items that are going to be installed on site. So if I come into doors, for example, and if I click on a door here, this is an asset. So this is a line item list of objects separate to locations. This asset has a particular ID, which you'll notice comes from Revit. And this asset is also linked to a 3D model. So if I open up this asset and if I click on this model, it's going to bring me to that door in a separate model. So there's the full model, and it brings me specifically into that door inside that model. So if I have lots of assets inside a model, it will bring me to each individual one. So again, I'll show you that another example. Let me see, all categories, the radiator. So if I click on the radiator and if I click on the model, it brings me into the full model for that baggage hall arc. And it brings me to that specific object inside there as well. So this is the radiator hydronic fin tube that I can see in here. So you're able to import assets, in two ways. You can do it by an Excel spreadsheet again. You can upload a long list of all these items. So I have 130 items in here. So that's one way of getting them in. Kind of my favorite way of getting them in is actually from a Revit model or a BIM model if you're able to get access to one for your particular project. That's how I was able to link it to the 3D view. That's automatically done when I import it. So it extracts the assets or the objects from a BIM model and imports it into this line item list. So if any of your Revit users, you'll recognize this naming is direct from Revit, basic roof with the Revit ID coming after it as well. So it extracts that for me. And what I can do with barcoding in this is I can apply a barcode to an asset. So again, forget about locations. I can apply a barcode to that radiator. So if I hover over this radiator, I can see it has a barcode or a QR code inside here as well. So again, now what I'm going to show you on screen. And sorry, just to keep, the reason you'd use assets is because you can track the status of an asset on site. Has it been specified? Has it been ordered, delivered, installed, pre-startup, startup, functional tests, acceptance, post-acceptance? These statuses can be updated when you scan a barcode on site and you can say, okay, well, that's been delivered, that's been installed, it's been commissioned. These statuses are all customizable. These are just out of the box ones here. I think I have some different, I can set up I have some BCAR ones here, I believe. Yeah, so I have BCAR complete, incomplete, or critical fail. So I'm able to create my own ones. If you want to do red tag, blue tag, green tag, all that kind of stuff as well. Or different types of statuses, different types of priorities. You can build your own status sets. And it's actually, the status set is actually based on the category. I can say, okay, well, I want a BCAR category applied to category, anything that's a category of a door, effectively. So just that was a little side note on statuses. You can customize those in assets, just to explain the reason that you'd use an asset. So what I'm going to do now is, again, I'm going to get up another barcode. So this time, this is a barcode. I think this is a door. I can't remember. And I'm going to come back onto my iPad again. So I'm going to come back onto my iPad again. Let me see. I'll probably do it side by side. So that's my iPad on the right, by the way. That's my iPad on the right. And now what I'm going to do on the iPad, I'm going to come to more, but I'm going to go to assets this time and not location. So if I click into assets, for example, it gives me my full list of assets here. These are the same assets that we looked at in the browser there a moment ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that scan button again. I'm holding my iPad up here, as you can see. Scan that. Oh, here we go. It didn't find that. it didn't find that because ABC 123450 because I didn't sync. That's why it's not finding that. So you're going to see me. I just have to find that barcode. So here, I'll just keep it nice and simple. I'm actually going to create a barcode very quickly from something that exists in there. I had moved an asset. That's why that happened. So now I'm going to download this one. Now I'm going to scan this. So I'm just scanning it on the iPad, and then I'll share my iPad screen now in a moment. So I generated that on the fly, as hopefully you appreciate. So now I scanned that barcode on the iPad, and it brought up that's associated with a roof panel effectively, or a roof item, and it brings up the barcode on the iPad as an asset. Again, we're not in locations here, just to keep that in mind. They're two separate barcode locations. So it brought up the asset. So now what I could do with this asset effectively is I could change the status of it. You know, maybe the panels have arrived on site or something's been delivered on site. I can say, okay, well, that's actually being delivered, and I can change the status of it after scanning it. So that's the way you can use it alongside assets. What I can also do with assets as well is in references. If I come into references, so again, I've scanned the panel on site. If it's a roofing panel or cladding panel, maybe they all have individual barcodes. I can take a photograph of that panel as well when it arrives to site. This photograph is now associated specifically with this asset. So again, it's tied back to that barcode because the barcode is tied to the asset. I can see any of the forms that are associated with that asset as well. So there's a photograph, maybe that's the panel arriving on site or being installed on site. So I can see that again, this is all associated with that specific roofing asset. And you can see this, the Revit ID up here as well is associated with that. I can also see if there's a form associated with it. So this form could have been pre-associated with that asset, by the way. So the empty form ready for install could have been associated in here if I wanted to as well. That's another workflow I could potentially show. Any damage to unit, I'll just say no. Number of units installed, and I can execute that form as I wish. And this form is actually associated with multiple assets. So I could also do that as well, that I use the same form for installation of a full roof or full section of roof as well. It doesn't just have to be one specific form per asset as well. So the reason, again, I'm showing this from assets is because I can also pull a report from assets as well. So what that effectively means, after I've scanned it, so, you know, it's been installed on site, I've associated information with it. I could also add an issue if I wanted to. Maybe there was some issue on site as part of that as well. I could create an issue and say there's a critical issue, and I could assign that back to an individual. You know, I could assign it back to the architect or contractor, subcontractor, whoever it is, assign that issue back to them. And that issue is now associated with that asset as well. And again, I can pull a report on that. So again, what I'll see, oh, sorry, what I didn't, there you go, schoolboy error. I didn't save that. I had to press save. There we go. So that issue is now associated with the asset. So again, I'm just going to, so that's, I've made edits to an asset there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come back into my web browser. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into that particular asset item. So what that was, it was roofing, and it was number 312096. So it was this is the panel that I just edited or added information to on the iPad. So now someone back in the site office, or, you know, back in our main office, or your main office, whatever the case is, they're able to look at that panel and go, okay, well, what's the status of that panel? Oh, it's been delivered. So that status updated by someone on site. It's now delivered. So a person on site can see that. They can see the photograph. They can see the critical issue. So again, that happens immediately from the iPad, whatever your location is. If the iPad user or mobile device user was out of internet connection, it will still allow them log the issue and take photographs. But once they get back into Wi-Fi or, you know, web connection, it will immediately then sync as well. It happened immediately for me, obviously, because I'm in full internet connection. Here, I can also see the panel install for that asset as well. So, and I can, if I really want to, I can see who changed the status. Okay, well, it was this person, happened to be me. This person changed it from specified to delivered as well. But what I can actually do with that asset information, so again, keep in mind that it is barcodes that we're talking about here, and it's how we can further use barcodes as well. So what started with a barcode, we're tying all that information together with a barcode, and then we can pull a report on that. So yes, I've 6 roof panels here, very low number. But if I wanted to filter on, let's say, only items, for example, that were delivered to site, I just filter on that list. And again, this status would update it on the iPad. Keep that in mind because the person scanned the barcode. So I can now generate a report on these panels. And I think just for argument's sake, I'm going to add some other. I'm going to say that was delivered, and I'm going to say this one was delivered as well inside here. I don't want a one item report. Status delivered, and I'm able to filter on those. And now I can actually generate a report. And again, this all comes back to the barcode workflow. I can then run a report based on that particular workflow as well. I'm going to generate that report. It's just going to give me a report based on these 3 items. And that report is usually about 30 seconds or a minute it takes, depending on how many items you have in it. And what actually happens with that, just to show you for reports, the report comes into the report section here on the build panel on the left-hand side. There's the reports, assets detail. It's still generating. So I'll just let that run in the background. But just to show you the other reports for, let's say we wanted to pull a report on locations. So I could come into forms, and if the location barcoding was used on site, I could filter in here. I could go, okay, well, I want to pull, unit 1, 2, 3, and I want to see ones that I only want to see closed checklist. I don't want to see any open checklists. And again, I can pull a report based on those items, export filtered. An export is a report effectively, PDF or Excel, depending on the format you choose. So that again, so that's 2 reports I'm pulling, one for locations, the other one for assets. So I'll let those reports generate. The first one may be ready. And then I'll download that report very quickly. So that report is now ready. That was the first one I pulled. So download report. And again, what does this report look like? This report shows me it's the category of roofing, because that's what I filtered on, and the status of delivered. So roofing items that have been delivered in this case. There's the 3 Revit IDs. There's the one that was edited on site. So immediately this is in a report, 1 or 2 minutes later. So it happens in real time, by the way. I mean, somebody can pull a report immediately after those items are delivered and scanned, and you're going to get a real-time report. There's the items there. So different roofing panels. There's the photograph that was taken on site. If there was an issue or any forms associated with that as well. And then there's the particular item then. This is the one that was changed on the iPad, by the way. There's the barcode, just to make you aware of that. There's the barcode that was associated with the asset. That's what was scanned. And because we scanned it, it allowed us to associate this information with that particular asset as well. So what I will say is, you're probably wondering, oh, well, should we use locations or should we use assets? So, I mean, both of them probably have different needs. I mean, locations, that may be your physical locations, room numbers, zone numbers. That's what you may use locations for. And then when it comes to assets, they could be physical objects or physical assets being installed on site, air handling units, radiators, desks, doors, anything like that. So it's about you deciding on what your strategy is to use the 2 barcoding options available to you. But I would certainly say, I mean, you use both of them and leverage both the power of both of them as well. And the final thing that I'm going to show you inside assets is I'm going to show you the model workflow. So the reason I want to show you this is because, again, it's coming before the barcode. So what happens, we get a design model from the client or from an architect or a designer, and you want to be able to do something with that. So, let's assume that, your architect design team have worked inside Autodesk Construction Cloud. You're the main contractor or subcontractor. You've now received that information. It's ready for construction as, published status or whatever status it is issued to you at. You can then pull in that Revit model. And the way you actually pull it in is you go models, and you navigate to where that model sits inside project file. So you come into, let's say it's in the published folder. I can choose a particular model. I can select that model. So this is an RVT model or a Revit model, by the way. So it imports that in here. I've done it previously. That's why it's showing me there. let me see, where's my, okay, there, I've done it previously, that's why it's already in there. So what I can do is I can actually extract items from this model. This model is it's a 3D or a BIM model. But what I can do is I can map assets. So I can say, okay, and I think this is just, I can just map the doors or the zones or even the other objects that exist in here, or units, depending what I have set up. These are just asset categories, by the way. So let's say I want to map any of the assets to doors. I'm not sure there are doors in there, so just give me a moment. Okay, I'm just going to go back because, okay, that's still uploading. I might just do it with this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the mappings of an existing model, just because I know what's in that model. So I'm going to filter out all of the windows in this particular one. So it's processing this model. This is a slightly bigger model, so it may just take a moment. So keep in mind that this model does reside inside the same environment from your designers or whoever you received it from. So I'm going to go Windows, Map Assets, and what it will allow me to do is actually search for Revit parameters inside here. So family name, for example, Revit family name. Yeah, that's correct. And then it will filter down. There. I'm just going to pull out these particular windows. So it's going to show me the results of wherever these windows are in that model. This model has lots of other objects in it, by the way. It has walls, windows, we could have ducting, roofs, anything like that. I'm just filtering it by Revit family name, and I only want these particular items. So these items will now get turned into assets. So I can turn these into assets. So it's going to create these 18 items as individual assets. I'm going to press save on that. So it's just mapping the property. So it may take a minute or two. Checking for overlapping assets. So it's making sure there's no duplicates. So I'm going to go next to map properties. So mapping the properties, what this actually allows me to do is it allows me to pull a property out of that window, and it allows me to put it into the asset information inside Autodesk Build. So let's say, for example, it could be a status. So you could have a status in Revit called specified, and that will get translated into the assets table that we looked at a moment ago. It could be location as well. It could be barcode. So you could map your GUID or your Revit ID to the barcode parameter as well. So again, you're looking at some, pretty key automation there that you're able to do. And I could say, okay, I want to make sure that these windows, let me see what I have in here. Is there an IFC GUID? Could be. I'm going to map that to barcode. So that's taking it from the Revit object and putting it in my asset object as well. So it's transferring it across. I'm hoping that worked. It will only work if I had an IFC GUID in there. I think I did. If not, I'll show you an example anyway. But what it will do, it will extract it very straightforward as part of that. So it's importing those 18 items. There's the 18 assets, import assets. So it's going to pull in those objects. And keep in mind, if your Revit model updates or it gets issued to you again, it will give you a warning that something has changed in the model. So if you need to re-import assets, it recognizes that the assets were imported previously, and you've 5 new assets in the updated model, for example. Okay, so it imported that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come back into models. Sorry, I'm going to come back into assets. So what I should see now under Windows. So Windows, by the way, is Windows. This is what I just imported. There was one in there already. So I have 19 items in here now. There's my window object. There's the barcode generated from the IFC GUID, so taken from Revit. It's now in Autodesk Build. And as long as I have that printed out or generated, some way to apply that to this particular window on site or being delivered from the manufacturer, then when I scan this object on site, it pulls up this window with the barcode associated with it, and it also has the model associated with it as well. So again, it will pull up that model and show me where that window is. Oh, there was view settings set on that. Why is that showing me? The reason it's not showing me the window there, I actually had it turned off in the view before I uploaded it to Revit. That's what happened there, by the way. But just to show you what that would have looked like if I come back into room. So I should have checked my window my Revit model, make sure that nothing was turned off. That's what's happened there. So, and again, if I just come into, again, any of these roofing panels, effectively what you would have seen is linking the acid into that object in this kind of manner as well. Again, so this is for roofing panels. I had set it up for individual panels in this particular model. And there's the roofing acid. That was the IFC GUID. That's the barcode someone can scan on site to pull up that information effectively. So I think I'll leave it there for now, but happy to take any questions. If you want to just put questions in the chat box, if you have any, but hopefully that was useful. Lots to take in, no doubt. I'll just, reshare my screen. Chat box and Q&A are open. Hopefully that means I answered all your questions already. If this recording will be sent out afterwards as well, by the way, so if you want to share it with colleagues or watch it back for any reason, it will be available to you. Okay, so just what I will, just since there's no questions coming in, what I will then, I'll just come back into those reports because, obviously there's an outcome. Why would we use barcodes as well? We need to be thinking about what that outcome is. And again, it is to, is it tracking progress? Is it tracking quality? And again, if I generate reports, in this case, the previous report I showed was acids. This one is on forms. So this is showing me the location, the reason you'd use location barcoding. And showing me all of the filter in here that I can see associated with particular locations. In this case, I'm seeing different types of checklists here, and the location I'm seeing here is unit 01. So again, that would have been associated with the barcode when the form is being executed as part of that type of workflow. Okay, no questions, which is hopefully a good thing, but feel free to get in contact. And obviously attend our future webinars in this design and construction technology series. But thank you very much for your time and have a great weekend.